Hey guys, I'm Danny Malou, and today I'll be talking about the lack of communication and comprehension, which is the broader topic for my research paper. And I came up with this idea by using a similar brainstorming technique we used in SA2. And I looked at the short stories that we read and some topics that came up in multiple short stories, and I came to the conclusion of the lack of communication and comprehension. And this idea stood out to me personally because I feel like it is such a prevalent theme in today's society and with the relationships that we have with family and loved one. Communication and comprehension is so important in building healthy and sustaining long relationships. And so, in Jane Baldwin's Sonny's Blues and Charlotte Perkin Gilman's The Yellow Paper, the lack of proper self expression and compassionate understanding between characters led to the downfall of Sonny and the unnamed narrator, respectively. So, the primary texts I will be discussing will be Sonny's Blues by James Baldwin. And in the story, the narrator and his brother Sonny have a very complicated relationship where they really don't see eye to eye. And they have this disconnect that we see building up throughout the story. And the second primary text is The Yellow Wallpaper by Charlotte Perkins Gilman. And we see in the story that the narrator suffers from a mental illness. And because of traditional gender roles taking place, she is not properly taken care of by her husband, who doesn't seem to understand where she's coming from. So, my main arguments are Sonny is unable to accurately explain his struggles with addiction and the reasons he asks to move out of Harlem. So, Sonny is very complicated and he struggles with drug addiction, with heroin, and he wants to leave the city of Harlem to get away from this. But he can't accurately describe why he wants to leave and he can't accurately explain what he's struggling with and how he feels. The narrator's failure of empathy and curiosity keeps him on the outside of Sonny's troubles and leads him to put Sonny in a situation that makes his problems worse. The narrator doesn't seem to understand Sonny's perspective. He doesn't really realize where Sonny is coming from, and that's why he can't help him. He actually ends up making situations worse for him by making him live with his wife. The narrator's forbidden writing in her diary becomes an outlet for her self expression. So, in The Yellow Wallpaper, the narrator, who is suffering from mental illness, isn't allowed to express herself through art or like any form of writing. So, she has to do this in secret from her husband, and she has this diary where she talks about her life, and it becomes a big focal point of the story. John's refusal to acknowledge his wife's concerns about her own mental state as legitimate or to listen to her various requests ultimately contributes to her breakdown. So John abides by these gender roles where he feels like he is all knowing over his wife, and he is a physician, so he thinks he knows best. But because of this, he doesn't really listen to his wife's concerns about her mental illness and the stuff she's dealing with. And this leads to her mental health deteriorating. And the wider implications of this are mental and physical health are equally important components of overall health. Proper knowledge and care is required to help a loved one suffering from mental illness. Nowadays, mental illness is becoming a greater and greater issue, especially with the pandemic. So, knowing that this mental illness exists and is real and how to deal with it is super important in helping our loved ones. Self expression allows us to understand ourselves and process our emotions. Communicating accurately to others about ourselves will help foster understanding. Knowing about ourselves and how we feel is important so that we can tell others how exactly we feel. And this proper communication will help both parties in helping one another. Empathy is important because it helps us understand how others are feeling so we can respond appropriately to the situation and help them. If we want to help our loved ones, we need to understand their side, where they're coming from, and know what they're going through so that we can make their life easier and help and support them. So, with secondary resources, Pleading the Blood, Storefront Pentecostalism in James Baldwin's Sonny's Blues provides insight on how Pentecostalism beliefs played a role in the narrative. And Pentecostalism is a form of Christianity, and we see its beliefs and its ideas take a role in the narrator's thoughts and feelings. Woman entrapment and flight in Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper. This analyzes the impact of gender roles on the disconnect between the narrator and her husband and the role of the narrator's diary. It breaks down the patriarchal society that the story takes place in and why the diary that the narrator keeps is so vital and important to her own sanity. A health play of mind, art and the brain in Gilman's The Yellow Wallpaper. This focuses on women's health and place in society as displayed in the short story. It encompasses how this mental health issues were treated and what they were thought of in the society that this story took place in. And this is my citation page, MLA, of course. And this is a meme that I came up with, and I hope you enjoyed my presentation.